All right, welcome back to Bayou Time. Very pleased to have Dr. Laura Battle on the set. She's got some important people with her today, but we're going to start off with Dr. Laura. We got to keep her. I don't want her mad at me. So we're going to talk about Congress to campus. Of course, we'll have a nice graphic up there on the screen. But Dr. Laura, first of all, welcome back. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, Martin.
And tell me about what's new this year.
No, we did do this one other year, and we hope the Louisiana Center for Women in Government and Business hopes to do this every year. But then after we did it, we had the COVID problem, and so we didn't do it. It was like 2019, and now we have brought our congressmen back. They're from the National Association of Former Members of Congress, and one of them, Bustani, Dr. Bustani, is the president of the National Association of Former Members of Congress. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Okay,
you
good.
did.
All right.
Yeah, it's a big name right next to you. We've all heard the name many, many times. For
I know.
sure.
The
And-
moment you saw his name, you knew he was Louisiana.
And before we get to the guests, how does it feel now that you can have the event without worrying too much about masks and everything else? You got to be excited.
Well, we couldn't have events for a while. The governor
know.
said that we could not have events but the masks, every woman needs to know. When you don't have makeup on, just put the mask on, and you're going to look great, right?
Well, that goes for some guys too, right?
I mean, really, yeah, but y'all don't need makeup.
Right.
So when we don't have time for makeup. Oh, that mask is good.
Why did I know this just wasn't going to be a straight-through interview? It was going to wind down the path, right?
Of course.
You're right.
I'm always been on the path with you, Martin.
Well, fantastic.
All
Now, let's
right.
talk about our guest, all right?
Yes.
Very important people here today.
Yes, from Dr. Bustani. Dr. Charles Bustani is a surgeon, or you were a surgeon. He is now a partner of Capital Cusel, where he focuses on health care, tax, and trade issues. Bustani joined Capital Counsel at the beginning of 2017 after having spent a decade in the U.S. House of Representatives. He served Louisiana's 7th District from 2005 to 2013, and then he served us, the 3rd District, from 2013 to 2017 after the elimination of the 7th District. As a congressman, Dr. Bustani authorized legislation on a wide variety of subjects, from tax issues to welfare. Dr. Bustani initiated, this is very important, the IRS investigation that uncovered the abusive practices of targeting individuals and organizations based on political and religious beliefs. Was that a hard task?
Yeah, it was hard. It was hard working, getting answers out of the IRS, but we did.
All right.
Additionally, he developed and co-authored landmark legislation that replaced a sustainable growth, I can't say, rate formula for physician payment. Dr. Bustani also authorized trade enforcement language that created the tools for more effective trade enforcement in an effort to stop abusive practices. Dr. Bustani was born in New Orleans and received a BS degree in biology and chemistry in his home state at the University of Southwestern Louisiana, where where Shelley's son is going. I never say I'm a grandmother. So the daughter that had the child that goes to Southwestern. All right. Additionally, he served on the board of directors at Lafayette General Medical Center.
Let's do this, because I'm going to manage the time, because we're on 7-minute segments, and we have a very important man next to Dr. Bustani. So I'm going to let Dr. Bustani answer a question. We're going to come back and introduce our next guest. But tell me about the Congress to campus. It's got to be endearing to a person like yourself to be able to go into these arenas and teach people eager to learn this stuff.
Well, it's a lot of fun to go in and see students eager to learn And of course, they're studying political science and they're studying U.S. government, but we can bring real personal experience to the table and give them what it's really like to serve in Congress, why they should pay attention to what's going on in Congress, and steps they need to take to be more informed about what Congress is doing and how it affects them and their communities. And so it really is a rewarding experience. It's a program that the Association of Former Members of Congress has had in place for almost 50 years now. And we go to 50 or 55 college campuses all over the U.S. To do this. And it's a very popular program. And in fact, we just recently expanded it to Europe. I've done one in the UK and one in Germany most recently this past November. And it's proving to be popular there as well.
Do you find, with about 50 seconds left on this segment, do you find that different areas you go are more apt to be involved in this, or is everyone generally okay with learning about all this?
I think there's a genuine interest, especially when we present the human side of it and what it really is like to be in Congress and serve in Congress, and dispelling some of the myths that you would pick up on if you just watch TV about it. Because you see a lot of fighting on TV, but there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes where there is bipartisan cooperation and things get done.
Laura Battle is going to talk about not only a former retired congressman from Illinois, but he was in the military too, and I'm going to let Dr. Laura tell you who he is.
We welcome you from Illinois to Louisiana. Major General William Enyart served as South Illinois United States Congressman in the 113th Congress, where he served on the House Armed Services, given his vast background in that committee, and the House Agricultural Committee. He retired from Congress in January 2015. He frequently speaks on leadership and veterans issues. During his military career, General Enyart participated in United Nations peacekeeping operations. He is a graduate of the Harvard University Kennedy School of Government Executive Education program on U.S.-Russia relations. Don't we need you right now? He had oversight of and training responsibilities for multiple overseas deployments, including Kosovo. General Enyart had y'all, I am so sorry. I can't see because I just had surgery. So everybody's going to have to forgive me. Okay. I hope we're friends. All right. General Enyart had planning, training, and oversight responsibility for 4,000 National Guard forces from 11 states at the largest NATO conference ever held. He was also given the Commander's Cross of Republic of Poland for his work. As a colonel, he commanded the Illinois National Guard delegation to Ukraine, participating in exercises with 22 nations. He holds a bachelor's degree from Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville, a Juris Doctorate from Southern Illinois University School of Law, a master's degree from the U.S. Army War College, and an honorary doctorate from Lindenwood University, Belleville. And he married a judge.
So
Increasing.
Yeah.
Yet she's retired, but she still knows all.
Major General, thank you for being here, and thank you for your service. We appreciate it. I mean, listening to the bio, some of these places she named, Ukraine and Poland and all, it's in the news today. So I imagine when you're going to speak and you're going around the campuses, they're listening pretty intensely because of where you've been before.
Well, thanks, thanks for that great introduction, Dr. Badeau. And Martin, it's great to be here with you today. The experiences that I had in Ukraine and I was in Poland multiple times certainly have helped me understand a lot of what's going on in Central Europe and Eastern Europe today. This is really just a critical situation, and I had the opportunity to serve in the military over the course of every decade from 1969, the Vietnam War era, all the way up to the 20-teens. And it's clear to me that this is the most dangerous time for world peace that we've seen in that period of time. And I'm really glad that the students have taken the time to listen to the doctor and I speak. And it's really a joy to us to be able to come together and show them that Congress can, in fact, operate in a bipartisan manner. I would say that we have agreed on virtually everything that we've talked about today. You know, one of the important things that we've tried to show them is that, you know, on television, perhaps not on your show, but on a lot of television shows, they want to show conflict because it's it's exciting and it's a whole lot easier to talk about and people understand it. But in fact, a large part of what we need to do in Congress is cooperate.
That's right.
And reach those compromise agreements on. Charles and I have talked a lot about agriculture with the students because Louisiana is a big sugarcane producing state. And I served on the Ag Committee, and Illinois, of course, is a big corn and soybean producing state. And so we have to resolve those issues to help our farmers because that's what our country is all about, working together to feed the world.
Let me ask you, we'll start this and we'll continue it in the next segment, but do you find, we had the Cuban Missile Crisis when I was young. They have this crisis today. We thought it was pretty serious. We had 3 networks to look at. Today, you got thousands and you got Facebook and YouTube. Are the young people actually getting it? Is it sinking in what's going on today?
You know, I would certainly hope so. This is a crisis really of unprecedented proportion.
I agree.
I too was a youngster during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and we actually lived in Florida at the time, just north of Tampa. And I remember well climbing under that desk because we didn't, you know, we had to run those missile drills. This is a shooting war, though, and it never got to shooting during the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Right. And Dr. Laura, let me start with you. When y'all putting the itinerary together, y'all got some pretty good stuff on here. You got the SGA coming up later today, and the whole idea is to get students involved where they can participate, right? Is that the idea?
Especially government and the crime. There is a crime section at Nichols. They don't commit crimes. They talk about how to get rid of them. All right. Okay. And social services and business administration. All of that's important. People that want to run for office in the future are usually in those categories of education.
Okay. And Dr. Bastani, let me come to you because normally in your career, you've always made a point, but there's always been a counterpoint. Whenever you say something in Congress, you can always expect there's going to be another side to the story. I'm sure you encourage the SGA and other students, hey, I'm going to say something, but if you agree, say it. If you disagree, let's hear what you have.
Well, that's exactly right, because you can take just about any issue, and there are going to be different viewpoints. And it's important for all the viewpoints to be heard, especially if you're trying to solve a problem and write a bill that would address a problem. You want to understand what's going on thoroughly so that you don't get the diagnosis wrong and you actually solve the problem. And so if you block off certain viewpoints, you're not going to fully get the full spectrum of it, and you're not doing your job effectively. So this is what one of the things we're emphasizing to the students, and that is you can have a particular view, you need to express it. You can have disagreements, but do it in a civilized way, a respectful way, and try to understand where the other point of view is coming from to figure out how you can get to a compromise that ultimately will serve the most people in the best way possible.
Yeah, and Major General, he made a great point. Respectfully. We have people on this desk all the time. Just listen to what they have to say. You don't have to fight to the death. You may disagree with them, but at least let them say it. I'd imagine being in the military, there's a chain of command. Do students really follow a chain of command, or do they eager to say what's on their mind?
Well, you know, we found today that the questions from the students, by and large, were terrific. And they wanted to learn something. And they were certainly very respectful in their questions, but they didn't hesitate to press us on issues. And I think both Dr. Bustani and I tried to show them what it's really like. You know, and it's not all the R's and D's
Right.
fighting.
Right.
It's a whole lot of working together to solve issues. You know, we all want what's best for our country. And we all want, and we've all pledged to do, what's best for our constituents. Now, when you're representing 750,000 people, which is the average size of a district, you're never going to please everybody in that district. You can't.
Right.
Because there are going to be some folks who think this way and some folks who think that way. So you have to have a kind of a thick skin sometimes because you know you're going to get criticized. But you take an oath to the Constitution, and I've had to take that oath several times when I enlisted and when I got commissioned and then when I went off to Congress. And so that's an oath that we all take very seriously and try to honor.
Let me ask you, anybody ever come up with a question when y'all doing this that you go, wow, I never heard that one before? And it really makes you dig down deep to think about what your answer is going to be? Students are pretty smart sometimes, aren't they?
Yeah, didn't happen this morning,
Yeah.
but it does happen. And
Yeah.
I mean, I've certainly had it happen to me in previous situations where I've spoken with students. And it's actually refreshing to hear a viewpoint that you haven't heard before, and hear it, especially when it's expressed clearly. And that makes me feel good that, you know, students are asking questions, are thinking, and that's important because in our American democracy, you really have a responsibility to be informed. Otherwise, things start to unravel. And I think the more students are showing that willingness to think, take on the hard questions, think about them deeply, discuss them, entertain the viewpoints, that's good. That's healthy. That's what we want in a democracy. And many times, that's also what happens in Congress in committees, which don't get the media coverage, where we actually work across the aisle and work on legislation, you know, how to dot the I, cross the T, where does the punctuation go to write legislation. And that's important because you want the legislation to be accurate and actually, you know, projected to solve the problem you're working on. But that committee work never gets covered, and this is one of the other things we're able to highlight in talking with the students, that there are areas where we can cooperate and work together, compromise, and find ways to get things done.
And that's why we let people talk on this show, because sometimes when you get caught in the editing room, it doesn't come out the way you really said it. So we'll go to the Major General. We'll give you the last minute, and any interesting questions you might have received that really made you think they were thinking?
You know, it's certainly happened in the past, and I always enjoy hearing the questions, because when you hear the question, you learn a lot about how the young person thinks. And one of the points I made this morning, and one of the points that I try to make to all students when I speak to them, is that if you can put an issue on a bumper sticker, you're not getting the whole issue. Because issues that we have to deal with in Congress are complex, and there are always more than one side to an issue. You know, Dr. Bustani and I have talked a lot about the sugar industry, because Louisiana has got a big sugarcane industry.
The LGLA.
Louisiana Girls Leadership Academy.
Put your plug in. Get it out right now.
It's our signature program. And it's going to be in June from the 12th through the 15th. And girls can go on now and apply at the center. Our phone number is 985-448-4770. And our website is louisianawomen's.org. And you can apply to be a student. We can take up to 50 from across Louisiana to be a student at the Louisiana Girls Leadership Academy. And our program this year, which they can get by going online, is fantastic. And of course, the Lieutenant Governor will be with us at Dr. Rogers' house. And so will speakers from business as well as from politics.
Dr. Rogers' house should have its own zip code.
Yes, it should.
It's a pretty big place when you go in. All right, I want to come back to Major General Inyard, if we could, because since I have you here and you've been so versed in Ukraine and Russia and Poland and all, just give me your thoughts right now, because it's on my mind for sure. I watch it every night. I can't get enough of it, trying to figure out where's this going, because it seems like we have a guy in Russia who could push the button, but I'm not in the know. You're in the know. Are you scared of that?
You know, I don't think anybody can read Putin's mind. I'm not sure he knows his own mind, but clearly Putin is the center of gravity, if you will, in this crisis. And he could call it off tomorrow, but will he? And what will it take to get him to call it off? Can he back down? You know, here you've got a guy who was a mid-level KGB spy and who then became a fixer for the St. Petersburg mayor, dealing with the Russian mob, the Russian mafia. And all of his life, it was, you know, you have to show strength, you have to show strength, you have to be a bully. And I don't think he knows how to back down. But so how is he going to back down? Are the Russian elites going to get together and say, okay, we've had enough of this guy. He's had our yachts confiscated and our jet planes confiscated and our London apartments confiscated. So let's get rid of him. Will they do that? Will they get together and do that? I don't know. But I can tell you this, that if the casualties are anywhere close to what the NATO folks are saying, there's a lot of moms and a lot of grandmothers sitting in Russia who are going to be getting caskets.
Right.
And when they do, they're not going to be very happy. And you can only withstand that public pressure for so long. And even someone who controls the state media as he does, even as someone who's got all of his secret police working for him, you can't withstand that pressure from those angry moms and grandmas.
And the more I look at it, I'm almost thinking, why won't they give him an escape plan so his mind has an escape plan? The only way this guy will get out is if he feels like publicly he's convinced people that he's won. That's the trick, isn't it?
Well, that certainly is a trick. But, you know, Martin, it seems to me that we've tried to do that. You know, they said, well, let's do this off-ramp, let's do that off-ramp. And, you know, wasn't it Mike Tyson who said, everybody's got a plan till they get punched in the mouth?
Yeah.
Well, here's what happened. Putin got punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
He thought he was going to roll, his plan was he was going to roll right in, he's going to take the place. Well, that didn't happen because he got punched in the mouth. So is he looking for an off-ramp? I'm not so sure that he is. I think maybe instead it's time we say, that's enough. We're not gonna let you do this anymore, and we're gonna stand up to him, and that's what we have to do in order to get him to back down. There is the danger, though. He could push a button.
No doubt. And I'd like Dr. Charles Bustani to weigh in on this segment. We'll come back on the other one. But your thoughts on that?
Well, I think, first off, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, if you look at what President Biden has done to put a very strong coalition together that involves the U.S. with the European Union, NATO, some Asian countries, and to craft the kind of sanctions package that's never been done before to this extent, it has put tremendous pressure on Putin on the economic side. That's the economic aspect of warfare, which is very important in this set of circumstances, because that could be a factor also that, in addition to the moms and grandmothers who lose young soldiers, that added pressure of the economy in Russia could also create a move to get rid of Putin or do something of that nature, or get him to back down in some form or fashion. That's an unprecedented coalition. Secondly, the Ukrainian military. That effort has been amazing. They have stood up and they've actually pushed back on the Russians in some areas. And the combination of those two elements, if we can hold all that together, that is the opportunity to put the kind of pressure on Putin so that we can get to a point where there would be an equitable political solution to this, which is probably the best way to end it. Because the risk, obviously, with escalation becomes very high for even a potential nuclear weapon being used. So I think I like what's going on in the way we've approached it so far. much more needs to be done. You got to keep this coalition together. That is the key to success. That plus the Ukrainians being supplied with weapons to hold them off.
Let's talk about agriculture and gas prices and the amount it takes to run a business now is going up. Let me maybe start with Dr. Bustani. The oil and gas industry, the rigs offshore, they're dying, they're chomping at the bit to go back to work and drill, baby, drill kind of thing. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, when I was in Congress, I fought to promote the oil and gas industry. I was instrumental in actually getting the legislation passed and, to allow us to export liquefied natural gas and oil, which is now proving tremendously valuable in this fight with Russia. The oil and gas industry is still the core of our energy supply in the United States. That's not going to change for the foreseeable future. I mean, a lot of efforts being done for research and development and implementation of alternative energy, but you still need oil and gas, and Louisiana is going to play a major role in that. So I think we need sensible policies that support it, promote it, hopefully move it to cleaner ways of doing it, which I think the industry is interested in. But the Gulf of Mexico is clearly a key component to that. It's important for the entire country.
Mm-hmm. And I'm interested to get the Major General's point on this. Nobody in the United States is immune from high gas prices right now. Wherever you go, some are a little higher than others, but it still costs so much more to fuel up, and it's affecting a lot of families.
Oh,
Your thoughts?
absolutely. It's you know, the price of energy is, if you've got to drive 20 miles to work or 50 miles to work, filling that gas tank up can get to be a very painful process. One of the things that we need to do, we need to have an all of the above energy policy. You know, oil and gas is not just a Louisiana issue or a Gulf of Mexico issue or it's a worldwide market. And so whenever part of the oil supply gets cut off, it doesn't just impact Europe, because Europe was importing 40% of their energy from Russia. It impacts all of us. And so by broadening our energy base, you know, including wind and solar and all of those other things, we lessen our dependence on that oil and gas. And oil and gas is going to be a very important part of our energy mix for a long, long time. Southern Illinois, that I represented, is a coal industry. It's a big coal mining region. And when I was in Congress, coal provided 50% of the energy in this country. Today, that's down, I think, around 37%. So it's dropped precipitously over the last decade. But you know, the coal industry would get mad at me when I supported environmentalists, and environmentalists would get mad at me when I supported the coal industry. But as a point of fact, we needed that coal in order to move on to the next phase of our energy policy, just as we need oil and gas today so that we can move forward. You know, we have environmental issues that we have to address, and the young people particularly are concerned with environmental issues. But when you've got so much of our energy mix today dedicated to oil and gas, that's certainly a critical part of our infrastructure.
Let's talk about agriculture real quick with about 3 minutes left, because you both come from areas where agriculture is so important, and they always put a big check mark. When people are campaigning, they always talk to the agricultural industry. How important is agriculture at this point, and how does all of what we're talking about affect agriculture and drive prices up on agriculture? Doc, we'll start with you.
Yeah, well, agriculture is a huge part of the Louisiana economy, and it's a big part of the American economy. And we're a net producer of agricultural commodities in this country, so we help a lot of countries, you know, in Africa and places like that by exporting. Mm-hmm. And now with the Ukraine war going on, where a lot of wheat that was produced in Ukraine and Russia that normally went to North Africa or to the Middle East, that's offline. You know, food prices are going to go up. But with the energy situation and the broader inflationary problem, the costs are rising for farmers too, here in Louisiana and elsewhere. So all of these things are connected from an economic standpoint, and they affect everybody, not just the farmers or the energy producers. They affect everybody. So I think promoting our agriculture. Bill's worked on farm bills when he was in Congress. I did when I served on the Agriculture Committee for a while. Those farm bills are really important in setting the foundation to have a vibrant agricultural sector in this country, and it was certainly very important for Louisiana with the rice industry, soybeans, and sugarcane. So
And we always stereotype Louisiana, we always say sugarcane. I'm gonna go to Major General Inyard. We always talk about corn in Illinois, but I'm sure they have other things they grow too.
Absolutely, corn, wheat, soybeans. And, you know, with, as Dr. Bustani was talking about, with the crisis in Ukraine and Russia and the wheat exports, you know, they feed a huge percentage of Egypt and all of that North Africa. So now the prices, gosh, wheat is up tremendously, the price of wheat is. Now, that's great for our wheat farmers, in that they're going to be making more money, and when they're making more money, they can buy a new pickup truck, which is good for GM or Ford or Ram, and they can buy a new John Deere combine. But also their inputs, their crop inputs are up. The cost of diesel fuel, the cost of fertilizer, all of those things are going up. So it's cutting into their profits there too. So as Dr. Bustani pointed out, this is a very complex issue, and it's an international issue. It's a security issue. With increased prices, you're going to see a great deal of instability in the Middle East.
And Laura, thank you so much for bringing these gentlemen on, but I want to talk about your organization, because if the locals don't get involved, and you have to go outside of the locals to get the positions filled up and the seats filled up, they won't get another second chance at it. Is that correct statement?
Not this year, right. And that's for Congress to Campus is one of the programs that we are now promoting. And the Louisiana Girls Leadership Academy, as I've said, is our signature program in which girls learn to be leaders. And they get leadership training, they get conflict management, they get a public service, they learn about business and public service. And I think that's really important. While you're a teenager in high school, you're not sure what you're going to do. So the Louisiana Girls Leadership Academy offers you a lot of possible choices and the training that you need for each one. Of course, we always started off with public service and government. That was what I started out with. And then we added business. And our programs have always gotten great thunder.
Well, let me ask you this, because you brought two guests today that are very interesting, well-spoken, get their points across. To me, if I was in college and I had two guest speakers like this, we'd have been tickled pink, because that's how you learn. But to hear the inside of what they actually do is pretty incredible, isn't it?
It is, and that's why we're promoting this. And for the Louisiana Girls Leadership Academy, it's girls in high school. And we're teaching them, you know, if you're in the 9th grade and you come to LGLA, you've got 3 more years to learn to run for office.
Right.
And we're starting you off. If you're a senior, you can look at the business options, and you can look at public service outside of high school and into college. That is exactly what I taught my children before I ever started this program. How do you run for office? And what do you do for people when you get there?
Well, obviously, both of our guests today know how to run for office. They've been very successful. And also, we have one very knowledgeable in the military aspect of it. But let me give each of y'all about a minute and a half just to close out with our audience today. And Dr. Bustani, we'll start with you.
Well, I think it's a pleasure to be here, and certainly to talk with the students on the campus at Nicholls State University. We want to explain that public service is a good thing, but you have to go into it with the right concept, the right attitude. You have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Is it simply to build my name recognition and have nice positions on television, or is it really to serve the public? And we're saying it's the latter. It's you have to look at the office you run for and do the job. It's not about the glamour of appearing on television or becoming a social media influencer and getting likes. It's really about the job. But also, we're trying to let the students know that it's important, whether you run for office or not, to be informed, to understand, to dig down and get the facts on these issues, because oftentimes, as Bill said, they're much more complicated than what you get with a soundbite or a tweet. So that's what we're trying to explain to the students. Lastly, as someone who has paid a lot of attention to Louisiana, this state has so many wonderful attributes. Oftentimes, our leadership has failed us. And it's important because if you think about the elements that we have with agriculture, the oil and gas sector, our manufacturing, our natural resources, the Mississippi River, the Atchafalaya River, the Calcasieu River, this state ought to be really booming economically. And I think it can, and I encourage all to do their part to make that happen. And that means making sure that we have good government.
All right. General Inouye?
Thank you, Martin. I want to thank you for taking the time and spending all this time with us, giving us the opportunity to explain some of the complexities that we deal with. You know, when you see the Republicans and the Democrats fighting each other on television at night, that's just drama. That's not the whole story. And the whole story, as you can see with Dr. Boustany and I sitting here talking, we may differ on some issues, but we can work together to resolve those. And by golly, that's how you get potholes filled. And that's how you get the shoreline taken care of, as Dr. Boustany worked on. And I'd also like to thank Nicholls State University and Dr. Beto for having us, because it's not just an opportunity for the kids, it's a great opportunity for us. And I really enjoy coming out and meeting new people, and my gosh, the reception we had last night, the food was wonderful, and the conversation was wonderful. And the people of Southern Louisiana are just a delight to be with. It was a tremendous opportunity for me to serve in our country's military, and I in spite of some bad times, I really enjoyed it, and it was an opportunity likewise to serve in Congress, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
I want to thank both of you for coming on with Dr. Laura, and she keeps me attuned to everything that's happening, trust me. And if I don't get her on ASAP, she puts an X by my name, so I have to do that. This is it, folks, with about 20 seconds left. There you go, Congress to campus. I want to thank everyone who's involved with this, doing a great job. And I know the interesting conversation we had today, you get an extended version of that. We appreciate you joining us. We thank you for watching Bayou Time, and we'll see you again around the corner.